Okay. Can I do the clap as well?
What size?
Can I do the clap?
If you like.
I'll do it.
All right, this
On you go.
is Zoe.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
And how did we meet?
We met when I was driving up to Honister Pass and I saw a dodgy looking character on the side of the road with a large bag of wood. So me and my husband decided to stop and give you a lift because we felt sorry for you.
So we got talking, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
We started talking about the lakes and mental health
Yeah.
and how it works with your mind. You were open to me about how the lakes have helped you.
Yes.
So when we were in the car, you were saying that you like to do this hiking stuff as often as possible
Yeah.
because that helps.
Yes.
Tell me in what way it helps and how often do you have to do it?
I try and get out as often as possible. I don't go out in wet weather as much as I used to because I'm now of a certain age where it aches my bones slightly. So used to go out nearly every weekend. I do try and get out with my husband as often as possible now. I find it a necessity rather than a luxury to go out. Living in the Lake District, it's such an amazing place and I'd like to make the most of it.
So this is something that I feel is that at the end of a certain amount of time, I have to get out. I sort of need to get out. Is that the same way you feel?
Itchy feet. I literally get itchy feet and I have to get out, even if it's grounding, which is becoming quite common now, stand barefoot on the earth. I used to think that was a bit of a hocus pocus type of thing, but the benefits of standing with bare feet on the earth, especially grass, is incredibly therapeutic, I found.
Yeah. Going up in the fells, do you get that sense of I'm a little bit scared that I'm up here?
No.
No.
Never.
Never.
Honestly, no.
Because that's one of the things that I quite like, going up and
Adrenaline.
and being in the cold and feeling like, oh, I'm not sure, not 100% sure I can get myself out of here. I like that feeling. When you're up there, are you thinking about the things that, depression and anxiety, does that reduce?
The only time I feel in the moment, actually present in the moment, is when I'm fell walking and up in the fells. It's the only time I'm not anxious about the future, worrying about the past, worrying about work, about family. When I start walking, once I put that backpack on, everything disappears and I feel free. The weight is just lifted off my shoulders, and it is mental freedom is something that I've never really had a lot of since I was a child.
Yeah.
And it's only getting out into the fells that helps me achieve that.
That's great.
Special, very special.
It is, yeah. Do you find that anywhere else?
When I'm creating artwork, is about the only time, yeah.
So it really is special for you to do that.
It's a necessity, and it is. I've never had a feeling like that. Even in this country, obviously I'm a 5th generation Cumbrian, so the Lake District fell. Yes, exactly. The Lake District fells are particularly important, but even hiking in Madeira, say for instance, in an incredibly old landscape, it's a feeling of elation and freedom that I've never had through anything else.
Is it okay if we also talk about ADHD for a moment?
Yes, sure.
So that feeling of, I don't know your experience with it, from what I know, it's sort of very jump between different thoughts and constant overwhelming and stuff. For me, for example, there's a bunch of different cameras. I feel like that's a lot.
Yeah.
When you're out on the fells, do you get that sense of it's all gone?
Yes.
Wide open spaces.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
A lot of the time I feel like I've got a hamster wheel with multiple hamsters in my head, going round and round in multiple directions, a bit like a sort of a twisted circus.
Okay.
And when I get out on the fells, somebody opens a little door on the hamster ball and they all just run free. And that's kind of this sense of freedom. There's an empty hamster ball in my head. most of the time I've got 101 thoughts racing through my head. It gets very confusing. It sometimes gets incredibly overwhelming. It renders me unable to hold a conversation, unable to leave the house sometimes.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen on the fells. It is very hard to get out sometimes when I'm feeling anxious, but I know without a shadow of a doubt I've never been out and not felt better for going out.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes forcing yourself to maybe go for a walk or have a bath, or when your mental health isn't good, it's a bit, well, feel a bit better. Getting out into the fells, every single time, I've been soaked to the skin, I've been freezing cold, I've been red hot. Every time I feel better.
I wanted to talk about being freezing cold.
Yes.
Have you ever done cold water swimming?
Yes.
Right. It's on the list.
Yeah.
So, my friend joined me the other day. He was kind enough to come and make sure that, you know, I didn't die.
Yes,
I went into
sensible to
water.
do in multiples, yeah.
I went into diluent water,
Well done.
and it has effects that last for hours. What kind of cold water swimming have you done?
I'm a little bit of a shandy pants. I only go in summer because I don't mind cold water, but I like a bit of sun when I'm coming out. So
Water's still cold in summer.
oh, it's still very cold. Rydal I've found is one of the warmest.
Yeah.
It's like a warm bath sometimes. I don't mind the cold water, but I do like some warmth when I'm coming out. So I'm not quite up to Wim Hof type of things yet.
Yeah, the cold water breathing techniques.
But as far as for mental health, it sort of dissipates the cortisol, which is a stress hormone.
Yes.
And it lasts far longer than any drug, anything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you had experience with drugs?
Yes, in my past, yes.
Yeah.
An awful lot, yeah. I'm not proud of the fact, but yes, I did experiment with drugs an awful lot in my past, and due to the fact I've tried just about everything, I can say hand on heart that nothing was as good as fell walking and cold water swimming, and I've tried most of them. So that's it's a pretty good indication of the power of nature, if you like. Yeah.
It is.
I've drank from a very young age, really, and used to smoke tobacco as well. So first drink of alcohol I remember was my mother putting in my bottle and then handing me off to my gran, and then she put whiskey in my bottle, so I slept very well as a child.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise I was using that as a self-medication. The drugs, the smoking weed, taking cocaine and speed occasionally, and the alcohol was masking a lot of the symptoms of ADHD and the other mental health issues I was having. It was only when I stopped doing all that, then the work really began on self-help, really, seeking counselling and rediscovering a love of walking, which I couldn't really do when I'd had a few drinks.
When you say rediscovering,
I've always gone out walking,
yeah,
but when you're under the influence of other things,
it's
it
harder,
masks.
Yeah.
It's like walking out with a big veil over your head, basically.
Yeah.
Then without substances, you take that veil off and you see nature for what it is, which is incredible.
The message I would really like to put out there is that rediscovering. You know, if you've done it before and you've fallen into something else, it's entirely possible that you can go back out and re-find it.
Yes.
Go back to it.
Yeah.
And you're proof of that. You are a literal human presence that is a proof of that.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. But for young people, that whole journey may be ahead.
Yes.
And it's a really difficult journey.
What I find really nice going into the fells now is a far, far more younger people up there than there ever used to be. I don't know whether social media's got that to thank for it, but when I used to go out, it was all people in the 60s with the hiking poles that I used to take the mickey out of. Unfortunately, now I use them, and I know why they use them now. So I don't have that judgment anymore on people. I think when you enter a different age and a different stage of life, you become a lot less judgmental, a lot more accepting of why people do things.
Yeah.
But,
so, from where you are now, if you were talking to someone who's sat in their bed and they can't bear the thought of getting up and going outside, would you have something to tell them, some motivating thing that now motivates you, you know, looking back?
I've been in the position through depression. I've been in very, very, very dark places where I've not wanted to be here anymore. My children were the saving grace. If it hadn't been for them, I probably wouldn't be here anymore.
I'm glad you are.
So I have to, thank you. It seems like an unreachable goal when you are in those dark places.
It's very convincing, isn't it?
You don't want to help yourself.
Yeah.
You can have all the tools available sat right next to you, and when you're in that mindset, you don't want to do anything to help yourself. To know that there's something out there and other people have been in the same position, then making that first step may be incredibly difficult on your own. And what I have seen on social media these days is there's a lot of walking groups, which
It's also on the
walking groups are available if you are very isolated through being self-isolated or through not having many close friends, which is difficult for people with ADHD and other mental illnesses. You do self-isolate, you do feel that nobody understands you. Joining a group can be immensely helpful.
When you're in that dark place, are you glad you reached the handout? You made the first step?
Every time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
despite
it's
how hard
good.
It was,
Yeah.
are you happy you did it?
Yes, every time. Every time, because I enjoy my own company, and I'm not afraid to say that. I am quite a loner. So being on my own is something I'm quite happy with. However, it's not good for my mental health. So reaching out there to good friends who you can trust, who aren't going to judge you for bursting into tears or getting halfway through a walk and needing to come home, all that is okay to do. It's just it's just getting out there and trying.
I think having a friend's shoulder to cry on, a lot of people think, you know, from their perspective, that's very embarrassing to cry on your friend's shoulder. So I would want anyone who watches this to ask themselves, would you rather have your friend cry on your shoulder or not have your friend? Because that's what it comes down to.
And a good friend won't mind. A good friend will feel quite honoured that you're able to open up and do that.
Yeah.
I still find it very hard to be emotional in front of people. That's due to childhood trauma. I find people that are able to show their emotions incredibly brave. I think it's a sign of strength and not weakness.
Yeah. It's so important to talk.
Yeah.
And it's become very difficult to talk, I think. Or I don't know if it's become difficult to talk, but it seems as though, particularly in men,
yes, very much so.
A lot of us would rather just not say anything. And I want people to see you and see that talking about it is entirely possible. And there's no judgment.
There shouldn't be judgment, and what I've learned over the years is basically to not care what people think, or at least strangers.
Yeah.
And that is an incredibly empowering thing, and it applies to men, women, everyone in between. To just, the sense of self is the strongest thing that you can have.
Yeah.
If you do burst into tears, it doesn't matter in the long run. It'll be forgotten about tomorrow. Yeah. If you find it embarrassing, or you need to let that emotion out, because keeping it all in is very, very damaging.
Yes.
And then you can explode. It's just not a good thing to keep it in.
Speaking of getting to a point where you explode, was there a turning point for you? Was there something that changed?
The drug use stopped when I had children. Well, before I had children, actually, obviously. Yeah. The drinking, I developed epilepsy because I was on an antidepressant medication that didn't work well with alcohol. Yeah. So I ended up having grand mal seizures.
Yeah.
So that was a turning point of alcohol, and that's when my journey of working on myself, my self-esteem, my anxiety, seeking outward help through counselling, through my doctor, through mental health services. That's when that journey started, which was quite difficult. It seemed like a huge upward struggle, but the more you chip away at it, it's like moving a mountain by starting with a little rock. It became easier and easier and easier.
Because counselling is often a step that people feel they can't do because it's like admitting that there's a problem.
Yeah.
You can have counselling without a problem.
Oh, I think everyone will benefit from counselling. I mean, if you break your leg, you go to the hospital and you get a cast on it. If you've got an issue with your mind, you need to do the same thing, but in a, you know,
Yeah, if you
suitable.
think you need, maybe, would benefit from therapy, go.
Yeah.
Just, even if you only go once, you know, it's...
Finding the right therapist is really important. I think a lot of people I've spoken to have been for counselling and they've not got along with a therapist. Considering how many people there are there, not everyone's going to gel. So finding the right therapist is incredibly important.
Yes, yeah.
And I did have a few false starts. I'm now seeing a lady who's incredible, very, very, you know, she's very helpful.
You say anxiety. For me, when I'm like in a shop or I'm thinking about going out and doing something social, that's where I get my anxiety. When I'm stood on top of a mountain, I'll talk to anyone. Is it the same for you?
Yes, very much so. I seem to have an issue with being seen, which given my appearance sounds ridiculous. It's being seen and being observed. It makes me want to crawl into a hole sometimes.
Yeah.
So I know it sounds very contradictory given my appearance, but when you're on top of a mountain, it's a great leveler. If you're dressed in the correct gear, most people kind of look the same. So you've got your wet weather gear on, same boots, similar. It's a great leveler for everybody, whether you've got money, whether you have anxiety, whether you don't have anxiety. Everyone seems to be there for the same reason. There's no agenda. There's very little judgment I've found, and everyone just seems to be a lot more chilled out.
Yeah,
really.
It is a leveler. It is. You're right. Do you like that feeling of being somewhere where, you know, everyone's on the playing field? It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is. We're all on a mountain.
Yeah, we're all there for the same reason.
There is something about being up there and just feeling like, here I am.
Yeah.
A moment of presence.
In the moment, exactly, because there is nothing apart from being in the moment. I can't remember which philosopher it was said it, that, you know, literally 5 seconds ago is the past and the future is yet to happen.
Yeah.
The moment is all we have.
And then there's the other take of that is that when you're struggling to get up in the morning, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is now.
Yeah.
Got to do it now.
Yeah.
So when you're struggling to get up in the morning and you're struggling to go out, you think, well, I could have done it yesterday, could have done it the day before. I didn't, maybe. Best time is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really good thing to end on, actually.
In the present.
Yeah. In the present.
Just do it, as the slogan says.
Well, now we can't use any of the footage because you.
I didn't mention who the company was.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sam. And I'm glad I picked you up on the road now, which sounds very inappropriate. Sorry.
It's all recorded.
Yeah, that's all right.
Do I need to clap?
You clap? No, well done.